Meanwhile, the Trump administration putting the pressure on Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell to lower rates this September at the Fed meeting. Watch.
I think it's just grossly incompetent, but not quite as incompetent as his decision not to do interest rates, take down interest rates, because just like they shouldn't have taken down a ceiling, they should take down interest rates. Every point costs us $360 billion a year. Think of that, $360 billion for 1 point. And we should be down at 1% because we're the leader of the world.
Now, we had a very tame consumer price index this week. The July PPI came in a little hotter than expected, but the CPI shows inflation cooling more than expected, still 2.5% higher since last year. Joining me now is O'Leary Ventures Chairman Kevin O'Leary. Kevin, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. First, assess the situation. When I saw the PPI yesterday, I thought, well, now we know who's paying the tariffs. Companies are eating the tariffs. They're not being passed on to the consumer. What are your expectations?
My expectations is that's not going to last forever, because the reason they were incentivized to do that is the volatility of the tariff rates themselves. The administration, let's face it, has been all over the map, threatening 140, bringing it down to 10, giving a 90-day extension to Mexico, not to Canada, keeping India at 35. So if you're a company, you're saying, why don't we just wait till this settles out? The assumption being that it'll be somewhere between 10 and 15% reciprocal tariffs worldwide. That's kind of the assumption in the market with CEOs in the S&P 500. So they haven't done anything yet, Maria. They're just waiting. Now, that's why Powell is sitting saying, I'm going to wait until they actually implement price increases into the consumer. And I don't know when that's going to be, sometime at the back end of this year. So these two things are interlinked. You talked about, the president jawboning and asking for lower rates. I don't think Powell's going to do it. I think there's, you got from the CPI, you got a 95% chance of a 25 basis point reduction in September, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but at the same time, we did get a very strong GDP number. We're looking at a new perception of the U.S. economy. I mean, look, you're an investor. What are you seeing out there in terms of people wanting to invest in America right now?
The economy's on fire.
Yeah.
We're killing it.
Right.
Period. And the consumer is still strong, given that the data last week from credit cards. And so, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you're not going to see rate reductions with this strength in the economy right now. And as far as money coming in, we're still about 52 cents on every dollar being invested in the United States. And with the industrial policy that Trump is putting in place, he's forcing some companies to rebuild here. I don't know how long that's going to take. Some industries like aluminum and fertilizers and things like that's never going to happen. But, there's nothing wrong with the economy. And that's why I don't think we're going to get any rate cuts beyond the 25 bips.
Okay. So you just think you're going to get one rate cut?
Maria, let me tell you how I'm investing. I look at the odds. It's 95% for 125 basis points. I am not investing on the hopes of any rate cuts this year. When I look at fixed income, and that's the decision on duration in the bond portfolios that we manage, even my own managers, if you talk to them quietly, they don't think we're getting any rate cuts either. So, look, everybody, spring's eternal, hope springs eternal, and presidents always bash the Fed. Fed bashing is in the handbook of presidency, 101. Always bash Fed every day. As for lower rates, I don't think we're getting them.
Meanwhile, a new report is saying that U.S. authorities have secretly been placing tracking devices in targeted shipments of advanced chips, detecting whether or not they're being diverted to destinations under U.S. export restrictions like China. Look, China has done this for years, trying to get their products, dump cheap products into America and getting them through other countries so that they could avoid the tariffs. China is telling its companies, we understand, to avoid using NVIDIA and the AMD chips after the White House announced both chip makers will give 15% of their China revenues to the United States. We're not sure if that's propaganda or not, but Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent addressed it when he was with me yesterday. Here, watch.
We're allowing the sale of the NVIDIA H20s. I'm not sure what the comparable chip is for AMD, and that's about 5 levels down the NVIDIA tech stack. And now the Chinese don't want their companies to buy them. because our rationale for allowing this, other than taking in revenue for Treasury, for this strategic industry, was to make U.S. chip makers the global standard. Now the Chinese are looking at this for a minute and saying, whoa, we don't want NVIDIA to become the Chinese standard, but we're also seeing today that the Chinese AI company DeepSeek is having trouble going to the next level using Huawei chips. So they've kind of backed themselves into a corner. They don't want to have a U.S. standard, but their domestic supplier seems to be subpar.
So what are your thoughts?
I don't agree on the 15% tariff or reverse tax or industrial policy on American chip makers going into China. I mean, it's a very strange policy. Pick one country, tax chips going in there. I don't like it. I would prefer to see policy like this that simply says to these companies, you're allowed to sell chips anywhere in the world you want, one generation back, including North Korea, including Russia, including China. We're not going to get in the way of you doing that. You're going to hold back the #1 generation for our own military, because the country that has the best AI will always win wars in the future. But anything that goes to the 2nd generation, not the 5th, sell it to the Chinese. Let me modify what he just said, what Bessett just said. It's not about the chips. It's about the software stack that has to be built around the chips, the honey versus the honeybee, so to speak. You want the entire world's programmers locked into the ecosphere of NVIDIA and AMD and American chip makers. They spend millions of hours writing code. We don't want them doing that for Huawei chips. Every developer on earth wants to work on the best tech stack. That's NVIDIA. So it doesn't matter about taxing the chips. It matters about getting them into the market there and having all the programmers work on the American tech stacks. That's how you control who's got the most advanced AI. And you never want the Chinese to have that. So by doing this, we're moving away from that goal. I don't agree on this 15% tax thing. I think just let them sell it everywhere, one generation back.
Yeah, well, it's a great point, especially as we see these new data points this morning on China's economy slowing so much. But I want to get your take on what's going on in New York, Kevin. A new Siena College poll shows New York City mayoral candidate Mamdani is leading the race. He's polling at a shocking 44%. Incumbent Eric Adams sits at just 7%. Andrew Cuomo at 25% and Curtis Lee at 12%. Mamdani is on his citywide anti-Trump tour this week across 5 boroughs, touting his far-left socialist agenda, opposing all of President Trump's policies. Your reaction?
I think if you're running in New York, a unique place, and you offer everything for free, you're going to get a lot of traction. I think it's rhetoric, though. I have asked, along with many other investors, to take a meeting with this guy to get some policy. We're not getting any policy. We're just getting rhetoric. I mean, if you listen to one speech from 2 weeks ago, it's identical to the speech yesterday. So zero policy on any of these promises. As an investor, particularly in real estate around affordable housing, I think there's a huge opportunity in New York because they desperately need housing. I would love to understand what the policy is going to be. Now, if he tells me that it's going to be rent controlled, there won't be a dime in the market because nobody will raise money if there's no returns. It'll just never happen. He'll never get affordable housing. And I mean, that's just a reality of life. You can't build free stuff. No one will do it. And so I would like to hear the policy, frankly. And if he could give me an hour of his time, I'd love that. I've asked him 3 times and his staffers. He hasn't met with any investors. And I think maybe he doesn't give a damn. But he'll give a damn when he tries to raise money for any of these mandates because we just won't be there for him.
Kevin, it's great to get your take. We so appreciate your time this morning.